What's good, everybody? What's going on, man? It's Stephen.
No! Well, hold on. We gotta start over. Wait, did it freeze?
Wait,
I think it's
did you
closed.
take it off?
Yeah, I took it off.
No, it's still.
Keep going. Hold on. You know,
What's
it's the
going
tried
on?
and true method. No clue. I did a magic trick.
Miguel, come on, bro.
Hold on. I know how to solve this. Hello, everybody. It is time for. Oh wait, how do you do stop video? Oh, boom. The Right Quality Podcast. Welcome to another episode. My name is Miguel Brown, the first, the only. And, I'm just the lovely co host, but the main host, everybody, it is.
Stop. Stephen Qualls the second, man, aka Mr. Qualified. I don't know how that intro became botched, but it's okay. It's perfectly fine.
Dog, it was that to this, and it just did next one. But I mean, now the surprise is kind of gone.
It's okay. It's okay. The cold intro will make it that much funnier, to be completely honest. But
Man, yeah, truly.
yes, but nonetheless, a lot of NBA topics to get into, actually. But yeah, wanted to get this in. We're missing Ashley today. She's busy this weekend, but we didn't want to have too much of a lull because there's a lot of different things happening in the league. So trying to keep y'all as updated as possible. But Ashley will be back the next episodes. But let's hop right into it, man. Let's get into some injuries first. Major injury news. Cat goes down with is it meniscus tear? Was it?
Yes,
tear. Supposedly.
1 month they will be revisiting.
So that's a odd. I don't know if I want to call the timeline odd. I guess I'm just a bit surprised because meniscus tear seems very serious and does not seem like something that will be anywhere near healed or like play on ready, in a month. But outside of the intricacies of the injury, he's out, essentially until the playoffs at the earliest. What does this mean for the T-Wolves in the rest of their regular season? And then if he is going to miss significant time in the playoffs, or if he's not going to be 100%, what does that mean for the Wolves, playoff chances? Because there have been people saying that even if the Wolves finish in the top two, which they are likely to, but I don't know, they may slip now. But a lot of people had them going out first round, even with being a top 4 seed. So, and Ant's your guy. So how do you feel like what should be the response for the T-Wolves in general, but Ant specifically?
I think just staying cautious, not trying to overexert guys. Like a game like yesterday against Cleveland, I know you're the number 1 seed. I know, you're trying to maintain that, but you're off a back-to-back. If you need to, you rest your guy like Ant. Those are the games that you sit him. If it's looking like you're going to be pushing it towards an OT game where it could have been if, he didn't go 7 for 26 on the night, missed every shot post the third quarter. But he's coming off a game where he dropped 44, 6, and 4, where it's just like he pretty much was probably concussed by the way he hit his head on the rim on that block the night before. So maybe it's the after effects of CTE that we saw in that Cleveland game. Early onset, not anything, not AB levels. But no, yeah, I think it's just really trying to maintain a top 3 position, not really trying to overexert yourself and like get guys hurt on the way there. And just seeing what that reval looks like for Cat. And I think a guy like Naz Reid is going to fill that void pretty seamlessly, but now it's like, that was a part of their depth, but if anything, it gets Naz Reid ready for significant playoff minutes, the more that he's supposed to step up in this time.
So I know that people make a lot of jokes about Cat, us included. But how important is Cat to the ceiling of the Wolves, right? Because you have a great defense that's led essentially by Gobert as your rim protector, right? You have great wing defenders in McDaniels. Alexander Walker's a good defender. Conley's decent at the point guard position. Ant obviously is a good defender and still has amazing potential. to be better. And so you have Ant as your young star, like clearly he's your number one option. But I feel like, all jokes aside, Cat is the glue in a sense of what makes them formidable, because Cat is still somebody who's gonna get you 20 points a game, right? And no matter whether you like the way his game looks, or we can talk about some of the inconsistencies, but that 20 points a game, means a lot, in addition to, complimenting Ant's, 25, you know what I'm saying? And complimenting the team makeup. So how are they as dangerous? Like, are they genuinely as dangerous or as scary with Cat out? I just love Ant, and I feel like Ant will be Ant, and Ant will show up. But the leap that Ant, because I don't think Gobert offensively just is capable of making that type of leap. I don't think Ant can make that type of leap to like compensate for Cat being out, and for sure not in the West. But your thoughts on that?
I think they're. It's hard to say because I feel like Nas Reed perfectly fits in that slot to where it's like he's not really expected to do anything different. It's just that those 18 points that Nas would support Cat with those 25, that's going to be the hardest part. So it's like, who's that next guy to really like fill a void? Like, I feel like it's Kyle Anderson in a way where it's like, other is gonna have to step up because I feel like Nas Reed's gonna kind of fit in seamlessly. That Cleveland game, he dropped a career high 31, like first game that Cat was like out. And like we've seen that he's capable. Like he was like 6 for 9 from three or something like that. So it's like similar type of player. I feel like his demeanor is even better than what Cat brings late game situation. Because I feel like the only thing that really holds Minnesota back in a lot of ways is those late game situations when we saw in the playoffs last year, like they get to chucking and putting up some like very terrible quick shots and like are very reactionary towards referees. Like we saw with Gobert last night doing the money sign, like after you just call your sixth and you tie the ball game up for your team, like so then you get OT. Like if he doesn't do that, they miss a shot, they play a foul game with Minnesota. We look at a whole different story. So yeah, I think he as a team that's looking to win a ring, you miss great depth with this, and you need depth to win a championship. So now it stunts their ceiling of what this year really could be if he doesn't come back healthy. But I think for the time being, it's like they might benefit from this and see that they still work just as well without Cat and possibly have better trade leverage going into next year, being like, oh, well, we really don't need him. We can if we really want to go get this, but we might want to go repurpose him for something else.
That's really interesting. I think they can get a lot for Cat. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
That's a much larger discussion of where else Cat may fit best. And that's a completely different conversation, but that's a really interesting point. I think that I do think they'll drop, just because Denver's been on their heels since the All-Star break anyway, right? So Denver's probably going to catch Minnesota out of those top two teams, just because a game like Cleveland, a Donovan Mitchell list like Cleveland, that's a win for a healthy
yeah,
Timberwolves team. One would think, right? Ideally. So I think there will be games like this where they'll drop a few that maybe they wouldn't, at full health, and they might fall to 3. I don't know if the Clippers catch them. They're so inconsistent. There's no telling. I mean, they had a
yeah,
streak earlier in the season, so who knows? But I could see them definitely falling to 3, maybe 4, if they just really hit a rut, or if the Clippers really hit, another stride.
yeah.
Um, Matchup wise, I don't think it really does anything, because I think any matchup they would have been tough, because the way the play in the West is looking, it,
Still loaded.
they was gonna have a tough first round matchup anyway. So
Yeah.
that's that.
And to say that Cleveland should be an easy win, they went on that what 19 game win streak with like DG out and Mobley. Like,
Yeah,
so it's like they've been doing that all year. They've been
very true, very true.
falling on a deficit.
Yeah. So It'll be, I mean, just more things making the last month or so of the season interesting. I did not
Pelicans.
realize until their last game against New York. When I realized that Orlando was the 4 seed, I said, when did this happen? But they had won 5 games in a row up until that New York game. And I had kind of saw the talk about Paolo throughout the week about how he was having a really good stretch and a really good season, but nobody was
Yeah.
really talking about it. And he's a reigning rookie of the year. But Orlando's in the 4 or 5 mix, like that's in the East, that like 4 through kind of like 7, 8-2 kind of is a little bit closer than it might seem. I think it's only about 2, maybe 3 games max.
Yeah.
So that's really tight, and they've been kind of, switching around, in terms of seeding. And then the Pelicans, they've kind of been pretty steady at
That
that
four,
5. No, they're
four,
at
five.
5
Yeah.
because the Clippers are 4 and they're
Yeah.
5. And so every time I check the standings, I remember you saying they were the team that was more than likely going to drop into the play-in, but
Yep.
they have not been playing like that. So thoughts on the Pelicans and where they fall in that bloodbath of the West, and then also does it mean anything that Orlando is in the mix that it's in? Because I also remember earlier in the season we were talking about Orlando and Indiana and saying that Indiana had the higher ceiling for this season, yet they've
Your
fallen
Orlando
into
is.
the playoff picture and they don't look nearly as scary or as dominant even to a degree as they have as they did earlier in the season. So thoughts on those two kind of like middling teams specifically.
I think with the Pelicans, not that I never, because I've always talked about how I like their culture. They've always had it. It was just whether or not Zion was going to be healthy and playing. And like he's been giving good minutes for them. That Philadelphia game, like he dropped something in 12. It was casual, like 17 and 12, I think, something like that. But like he's been in doing his thing, and still defensively, they have that mindset that they've always had, like since ever. I think Trey Murphy's coming back and playing
Mm.
really well. I mean, like guys that I don't think we saw before the All-Star break really like getting into their final form, like are playing productive minutes, and it's kind of coming together well. With Orlando, let me touch on Indiana first. Indiana, it's like we thought with Siakam, like that would be like a piece that like elevates them, but I feel like it hurts a little bit in terms of like what they were and how freely they could play with just Halliburton and a lot of shooters. It reminded me of like Russell Westbrook in OKC, where it's just like spacers that can just go and like get a nice cut or a nice like like corner three for him. Not that Bruce Brown played all that much, but I feel like their identity was more set in stone. And now with Siakam, it's like I don't know. Offensively, I feel like they have to compensate a little bit just to get him shots within an offense where it probably isn't as, not that he didn't do that in Toronto, like get up and just get shots up, but I feel like he's definitely more ball dominant than anyone that they've ever really had in Indiana. So, yeah, I don't know.
Is
That's
that
it, it's from a vacuum, from like the couple games that I've seen from them. Uh,
so? Is that point with Siakam? Is that taking away from how Halliburton kind of was running the ship? Because I do think it's a huge adjustment when without Siakam there, like Halliburton really controlled the touches. Like he got everybody involved, but there was
yeah,
never anybody that he kind of had to defer to and say,
right.
"Hey, here's your touches." But with Siakam, he has that skill set and he can. But then I also think there's an adjustment period now where it's like, okay, what does this offense look like with a actual kind of you know post up or mid post option to go to now, where Halliburton doesn't have to run pick and rolls for 85% of the game. You know
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
mean, it's
saying?
just
So
to see like his usage post and pre Siakam, just to see, because I know before, like whenever he would leave, it would be like straight to McConnell, straight to like this like guard like circle that they had between like Nemhard, Neesmith,
yeah,
TJ, and Halliburton. So it's like it's definitely more like point guard centric. I'm not sure how much of that has really like changed or has been tailored differently to Pascal, but I'm interested to see. But
yeah.
in Orlando, thank you. They have the issue that the Boston Celtics have, but they have an excuse because they're like 3 years younger than what they are in Boston. Like they're still
I
at that
mean,
point where
even
they're
younger than
learning.
4 years, I think. I
Yeah,
think,
like
yeah, yeah.
because this is like their if this is a comparable year, it's that year when they took LeBron to 7. If they were going to make something pop, if they had an organization to make something pop, this would be that time for them to have that, I think. Or it's like a
Tatum's
year,
rookie year,
huh?
Tatum's rookie year when they took
Yeah.
Bron 7.
Like in terms of they were young. So, but they had Kyrie there. They
Yeah,
had what was
they
that the
had
Kyrie
pieces.
year?
No, yeah, they had that. But
He was
Kyrie
hurt.
was
He was
injured.
hurt.
He was injured.
Yes, yeah. Yep. So like that is something where it's like if they were to make something shake this year and get a push like that, they have that excuse of like, oh, they're just a young team that it's like a guy might take a turn off or have an off night, whether it's Franz, whether it's Paolo, whether it's Suggs, whichever one of their guys that is going to pop off a certain night. It's like, okay, they're like their second or third year they're really putting it together, so we give them that excuse. But yeah, they're hooping though. Like I think they have a good identity. They always focus on they have size, they defend, and they play hard. Most importantly, I think that's a lost art in the NBA that you see with a lot of teams. Like at least those really bottom of the barrel teams that you see in the league. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool to see that they're sticking it out because I think we thought that this would be the Orlando of old, where it's like, they're here right now, but we'll see post February, and they're still here for right now. So I think we thought we'd see those old names like, oh, Atlanta will figure it out somehow, but they've been dead in the water for however long.
I think it's a
Trace might
side note.
be
I think they're official. I think it's official. They're going to blow that up this summer.
got to. It
They
got
have
to. It feels like what they did with Dame. They are hiding Trey, probably seeing what the Spurs will offer him. In terms of like, hey, you probably want to pair him with Wemby some way somehow.
to.
We will field your offers once again. Um, yeah, they got to though. Charlotte, I mean, you have to sit LaMelo the rest of the year. I don't see why you would bring someone like him back just for him to re-aggravate an ankle injury that seems to never heal because of LeVar making them wear their shitty shoes. Second cuss. Sorry, upsetting that he messed up Lonzo's knees. Um, like I think they're gonna be in the playoffs because it's not like the Wizards are making a run. It's not like Detroit's making a run. They have to hold off like Chicago teams like that. So they'll find a way in. Whether or not they pull a good matchup, we'll see. I'm interested to see what a playoff run for
Orlando?
them looks like when they don't face the Bucks.
Can't wait. Atlanta?
No, Orlando,
Oh,
Orlando.
Orlando. Gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I mean their most favorable matchup probably will be staying in the 4-5 matchup. It just depends on who's the other seed because I think well, that's also hard too because even if they even if Orlando stays in the 4-5 range, right? They're either going to pull New York or Miami.
yeah.
Because I don't think Philly will be. I think Philly will end up being. Philly might be 7. I truly think the way Miami's been playing, I think Miami's gonna at the lowest be 6. But I really think with the way it's jumbled up right now, I think they could be the 5th seed.
Yeah.
Hell, it could be the
They
fourth
always
seed.
make a push towards playoff time.
Yeah, hell, they could be the 4th seed. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But I mean, Miami's probably the most consistent team out of those 4 that I named. And at the current
Yeah.
moment in time, I think they're the healthiest. So, yeah, it's so I mean, I don't think long term that like jumbling of position in the East is gonna mean anything. But I think for seeding purposes and for matchup purposes, I think that'll make it relatively interesting. But I don't think Miami falls into a play-in situation
Yeah.
again this year. I don't see that happening at all. Paolo. Thoughts on Paolo this year specifically? I know we talked about Orlando as a team, but this is a reigning rookie of the year who is putting up some solid numbers and clearly leading this young Orlando team into I mean, yes, the East is weaker than the West, obviously, but I mean, when you look at those top 6 teams in the East, I mean, A healthy Miami is a top six, arguably top five, hell, could be top four team.
Yeah.
In the East, you got Boston, you got Milwaukee with Embiid, Philly's in the mix. You know what I'm saying? Fully healthy, New York is obviously in the mix. So those, I mean, the East goes about 6 or 7 deep when teams are healthy. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
how are you feeling about Paolo right now and his progress?
I think it's good. I just think, I think an old answer that I've always given with stuff that I haven't seen enough of. I need more data. I need to see what he looks like in a playoff series. Like he's been good so far. He's played good games. I've seen some where it's like, he has his off night and someone else like Mo Wagner is gonna drop 28. Uh but yeah, I just want to see what it looks like when defenses ramp up the physicality when they're afforded to do so. What he looks like after a team adjusts on him and can make several adjustments on him in a playoff series. Like, does he, does his efficiency fall off a cliff? Does he just not show up some games? Like, so I think depending on who they draw, it
Yeah,
could be pretty fun to see like who he matches up against. I think a team like Indiana, he's gonna, I feel, probably do better than if he's going against a seasoned playoff team like Miami. So it's like
yeah.
where Spo can just really, tool and tweak against whatever things they bring to the table. So I don't know. I think we just need to see what it looks like in April, what their first round matchup looks like, and then we can see like, oh yeah, like this is the type of player that he is, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think that definitely need to see. I mean, really everything you said in terms of when teams are able to key in on him. How do you respond to that?
Yeah.
It's early. It's early, but
Playing well.
with how he plays, I think the way that we talk about Ant, I think Paolo has that potential. I think he has the two-way potential. I don't think that Paolo's game is as electrifying, right? Like he's not as his game isn't as loud as Ant's game is, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of what he can do, all those intangibles for the most part are there. So I think it's a matter of can you I mean, will you continue to build around Paolo now? And like will you get a veteran guy around him that can really, bring him along, like while he's taking the steps, somebody that can keep pushing him, like, no, you gotta, if you really trying to get into that next level, like you gotta do ABC.
Yeah.
But I think he has that potential. I'm not saying he's close. I'm not saying that he's even in Ant's wheelhouse right now because we spoke very highly of Ant this year and he's backed that up. But I think he has the potential and the capabilities to be the same type of player that we are saying that Ant is, and even what Ant can be. I think he
Yeah.
does have that in him. We just have to see if he can materialize that and if it'll be, in Orlando. But
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah. Where do I want to start with these last two topics? I think I want to start with the player versus player comp.
I like
Um,
it.
so there's been a lot of talk about Shea, right? I think Shea's in year 5 or 6. In his 6th year, right? We've talked a lot about Shea arriving for the most part, right? Like
Yeah.
don't think you can question whether he's a superstar anymore. I think everybody at this point is just like, oh, what will he do in the playoff series, or will this translate? Sure, okay, but talent wise, he's already proven in my mind at least that he's a superstar. He's cracked the top 10 list for a lot of people this season in terms of like top 10 players in the league. I
Yeah.
think this year he's even further stamped that and even started to beg the question of, is he top 5? Some people have started to ask that question as we see players like, LeBron is LeBron, but I don't know how many people will say he's top 5 in the league right now, all things considered, right? Same with
Yeah.
a KD. I know Steph is in a lot of people's top 5, but even then, as great as Steph is, he's in there. But if he fell out the top five,
Yeah.
I don't think that's an indictment
That's
against
not a
how
shot.
great, yeah, about how
Yeah.
great he is. I say all of that to say I think people are, wanting to and trying to make the same argument for Tatum in regards to obviously being top 10, but is he top 5? Who are you taking right now between SGA and Tatum, and why?
So are we counting Embiid in this top five?
Yes,
So it's Joker, Giannis, Luca, Embiid, presumably is the
probably,
four. And then
probably
who's the odd man
that would be
out?
most people.
The odd man out, I think, is Jayson Tatum. If I'm going to like recency bias fully included right now, right here. Seeing how and his response, I don't think for everyone that for the uninitiated, he said he didn't want to hijack the game from Jaylen Brown against Denver,
Mm,
which fine. I think that I don't, as a someone that's as I said it pre-pod, I'm looking for hate. I'm looking for, like, oh yeah, I'm about to be a hater. But I don't in the context of it, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think he's saying that he's not going to force up a shot that's not within the flow of the offense if the game doesn't need that. If JB is a hot hand, I'm gonna let him have the hot hand. If like my team has a better open shot, he's saying that he's gonna make the right play essentially. Fine with that. But I think there comes a point when I think you said it best where it's like it becomes passive. And you are letting the game happen and you're not putting your impact on it when you should be going out and winning that game against Denver. And I think even though Shea has a comparable team, I believe that he can take a step back and be like, oh yeah, like go get a bucket, Jalen Williams, go do something, Chet. But when it's time to win a game, he's always going to make his impact felt. Like he is always there at the end of the game. He's at most 30-point games out of any player. He's been very consistent in delivering what he's supposed to on a night-to-night basis. I think right now, if we're talking player for player, I think Shea's top 5 over JT. I don't think that JT hasn't had a top 5 season. Like he is definitely like scratching that. He's right there, but I think that is the one thing that you can really see between the two of them that's different. I think when it's time to win a game, there is no question who is going to win it for OKC. For Boston, they are so balanced and have so much depth that he is afforded to take that step back and be like, KP, go win us a game. But I still think you can do that while taking initiative. You don't have to take plays off and be like, well, yeah, like they got it. You can still, find a way to impact. And I think defensively too, Shea, holds his own too. Not saying JT does not, but I think perimeter defensively wise, SGA is strapping it more than Tatum.
So that's that's for me where the separation would be, right? I I feel like for anybody that watches this pod consistently, I feel like it would be easy for them to think that this is just a bias against Tatum because he's a Celtic and we're Bucks fans, right? But it's genuinely not that. Like unbiasedly and just looking at it from a basketball standpoint, right? I I think at his absolute best, Tatum is a top 5 player, right? Because I would argue that Tatum gives you more than Luka does, right? So all around. So Luka is one of the top offensive players, obviously, right? And his ability to impact the game and virtually, if he wanted to, average a triple double is crazy. Not something we haven't seen before, but it's the way that he does it. But I also think that it, in a way, right? So look at it like this. When Russ was averaging triple doubles, I don't think anybody questioned whether Russ could play off the ball because he had done it before. He was just averaging triple doubles because it was literally his world at that point. He wasn't sharing it with another top player. Um, I don't think it's the same with Kyrie because Kyrie's at a different stage in his career now. If this was young Kyrie, I don't think I don't know if the balance would be the same, right? But then again, I mean, I don't know. But I say all that to say that because of what Tatum can bring on the defensive side of the ball, I could see that. I don't know. That's hard too. Honestly, I can't definitively say that. I can't definitively say that as a talent, Jayson Tatum is better than Luka Doncic. I can't.
Because the playmaking is on like that. He's
Yeah, I
impacting the
can't.
offense in like multiple. And not to say that Jayson Tatum can't play make either, but just like he's not the same pick and roll player. He's not, the same facilitator in general. Let's
So
just say.
yeah, and I think the true case with Tatum is this, right? We can talk about Luka and his shortcomings defensively all we want to, but I don't think there's anybody that has doubted Luka in the clutch. I don't think we've seen games where Luka does not rise to the occasion or rise to the challenge, especially when playing against other greats and other, top players in the league. I think that has been the one knock against JT is that in multiple situations, he's kind of fell short of that challenge when it comes to head versus some of the top players. And it's more
Yeah.
so the inconsistency. It's not that he hasn't shown up at all. It's just that he'll show up for a couple games, he'll disappear for a couple games, and it'll be the seesaw. And I think that's what's hard to keep him in the top. That's what's hard to keep him in like that top five because all those players, there's no drop off ever. Like Jokic is going, Jokic numbers going to be Jokic numbers regardless. Giannis numbers is going to be Giannis numbers for the most part, regardless,
Yeah.
right? Same with Luka, same with Embiid when healthy. And same is the case for Shea, where when you're averaging 31, 6 and 6, and Shea's biggest thing for me is Shea's averaging 2 steals as well. Currently the only player in the league averaging 2 steals. Or averaging over 2 steals rather. So it's just like I don't think you can really beat that stat line and the impact it's having on a team that's, I mean, seesawing between first and second in the West, for the entire season. And this is also a team that was the ninth seed last year. I mean, granted, they added, their lottery pick, back into the fold, but it's not like Chet's numbers are like crazy. Like it's not like Chet's
They're not
numbers are
Wemby
the reason.
numbers.
They're not Wimby numbers, and like Chet's numbers aren't the reason for the difference, in my opinion. Like, is he a factor in it? Yes, but I think it's also Shea's elevation of what he's been doing. So that's been a lot of all over the place of back and forth. But back to SGA and Tatum, I I kind of have to say SGA too, and it's because I don't know. It's hard. The conversation around Tatum gets so tricky because I feel like you have a lot of people that are looking at the talent and looking at the Celtics record and they're saying, what more do you want from him? And I don't think it's so much that we're asking for more from Jayson Tatum, right? I'm just saying when you're looking at everything, when you put him up against some of the other top talents, is he doing these things consistently? And it's like if he was on a team that wasn't so stacked, how would it look? Like if he was the primary defender as well as the best scorer, how would that balance look? I don't think he's incapable. We just haven't seen it, and so it's easy to. I don't know. It's hard.
It's a tough question. That's a tough question. That,
Yeah, because it sounds like hating. It sounds like we're finding reasons to knock Tatum down, and I don't think that's
it's just so hard. We have to nitpick the small things. They're like we said, he is 5'6". He's right there. I mean, is that
Oh,
disrespect for yeah, is that disrespect for saying that he's like just not top five? He's six. Like, granted, in my list, I don't know if I had him at six. I think LeBron. I had no clue.
I know I had him over. I know I had him over Bron. I think he was about six in my. I think he was about six in my list. If I'm not mistaken, I think SGA wasn't that high, but I think I had Steph ahead of him. So
Yeah,
I think he was right outside the top five in that regard because I know Bron was maybe like 7 or 8. But
yeah.
um, but yeah, it's a Shea just kind of gives you a little more. Shea gives you closer. Shea
And
gives you. Yeah, go ahead.
you're talking about a guy that's in conversation for MVP right now. He's not
Yeah,
like, oh, he's top five voting. It's like him and Jokic. That's really it.
yeah. Like and
Like they,
and and for me personally, well, if they get the 1 seed, I feel like it should be a shooting. To be honest, but even justling between 1 and 2, I don't see how a player that has upped his averages, um, the second leading scorer in the NBA, and took a team that was ninth last year, that I think they finished maybe like 42-40. And you're talking about a team that's probably gonna have, well, they definitely gonna have 50 wins, right?
yeah,
They arguably 55. I don't know if they'll get to 60, but arguably 55 wins, right? 50, 55 wins, and they're the 1 seed, and they were a 9 seed last year, and your star player, your closer, has the most 30-point games out of
most
the
steals in the NBA.
like how is he not the MVP? Like you can't say it's the stats. You can't say it's the record. You can't say they were like they had help. I mean, obviously the team is good, but like he's the guy. There's no question. Like you said earlier, there's no question night in and night out that he's the guy.
Yeah,
I and the last thing on the Tatum point, say what you want. I think it all goes back to this, and it kind of even goes back to what his comments on the game. And if you are the best player, Tatum said himself he's the best player in the NBA, right? That's how he feels. If that's the case, there's no question. There's no who else does it go to. There's no somebody else won the game tonight. No, it's
you can't
you.
hijack the game if you're the best player.
It's you. Like you
You're the
can't
pilot.
you
The
can't
pilot
pick
can't be hijacked by the best player.
you can't pick and choose that. It's an interesting narrative. I do think, unfortunately for Tatum, a championship changes the narrative a lot. But as it is for most players at this point, though, at this point in JT's career, he's proved everything else. It's not, the talent isn't in question. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like his skill isn't in question.
yeah. SoFi commercial.
I mean, is he a winner? That's what it's going to come down to. Like, is he a winner on the biggest stage? Because then when you start looking at genuinely like new faces of the league, Tatum, Luka, Ant, SGA, like
Vic.
those are the players that are like when in 5 years, because in 5 years I feel like Brian, KD, and Steph will all be done. Like
Yeah.
by it's 2024, by 2029 they're all out the league, right? So as they are transitioning out, who's going to take over? And I mean but that kind of also brings an interesting point, and we can wrap up here. I don't think we're gonna have not so much by skill set or player, but in the sense that the the consistency and longevity of dominance, right?
Yeah.
Brian went to 8 straight finals, right? Steph went to, I mean, you gotta think they two-peated, but they went to the finals, what, 4 or 5 years in a row? I think
Yep.
from 14 to no, from 15 to 19, they were there. And
LeBron.
so it's like, and same with KD. So KD's now in that mix where he had his finals run in 2012, but then I mean, went to a conference finals in those years in between, goes to Golden State, goes to 3 finals. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I don't think we're gonna see that level of longevity and consistency. So do you feel like will there be another player that's like they're going to be in the finals every year, or whether it just be this toss up like 1 year Tatum may get there, 1 year Ant may get there, 1 year Luca may get there, 1 year Shea may get there. Like, is anybody really going to separate themselves from the pack? Do you think? How long?
I barring injury, until that man's 40. I I truly think he could walk up and down the court and have an impact. All he's got to do is stand in front of the basket like this.
Okay, but so realistically with Wemby though, the talent and the capacity is not the question, but how quickly do you put a contending team around a Wemby? Like when you separate it from Wemby's individual like development, because that will happen. Like he's already gotten, I mean, you can already tell he's gotten pretty accustomed like to the NBA game and the transition and all of that. And he'll obviously ideally, just continue to get better. But how long one, like, does this still happen in San Antonio? And then two, what the Wemby still has to get that team around him before we start talking about him getting to conference finals and getting to finals and everything. So it could be that, but I mean, he'd have to have the team to do that. But I still feel like Wemby's still gonna have to go through all these players to do that. And I don't think that any of that is a cakewalk. So it's kind of
Or
like
it's not happening soon.
right. So that's why I'm kind of like, but I mean, it does feel like once the older statesmen of the league leave, it kind of really feels like everything is up for grabs. I don't think anybody in that next pack of superstars, Giannis is in a weird place because he's kind of in the middle. Like he's not,
He is the transitional star. Like there
yeah,
between
like,
LeBron and everyone else, like it's up for that next person to step up because it is Giannis. Like truly.
and I don't. It's hard. I don't want to say that Giannis stands. Well, I'd put Jokic with Giannis right now because
Jokic, they're the same era where it's just like they're not really bronze class, they're not really SGA's class, but they're
right
like still vets, like set 8 to 10 year vets.
vets, they have their accolades. Like I won't say that they're set for the most part, but
But
like
it's when they get tired of playing basketball. I
yeah,
think for those two, it's like it's not really like how long can they go. It's when they're like, I
yeah,
got like 8 kids, 12 horses to feed. I'm good.
right. No, I no, I completely agree. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see in the years to come who in that younger class. So when I'm like I said, I'm thinking of Tatum, thinking of SGA, still throw a book in there for me. Thinking of Luca, thinking of Ant. Will Paolo join those ranks? Will a who else is in that class? I think when a Ja comes back, uh, does Zion become the Zion we all feel like he can be? But who
Yeah.
separates themselves and gets one or two and says, "Hey, I got one or two in this era where I had to go through X, Y, and Z multiple times, to get it done." It'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see. So I think that'll be an interesting transition that the league is facing, but yeah, man. I mean, I
Nice.
think this is a really interesting season. But I think last year kind of started it. But I think that we are entering the era where it's not a guarantee that LeBron or KD or Steph is going to get to the finals. The West still runs through Denver for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? Like, who does the East actually run through? I mean, hell, people might say Miami, to be honest. So it's
Ooh.
like, so it's really up in the air because I mean, even when you look at Jimmy, it's like, yeah, playoff Jimmy is a thing, but I don't think that Jimmy's in that same space. Like he's older than like the Giannis and the Jokic and like those middle-ish like class of people. But Jimmy's done just about everything that he can probably do except win a ring for real.
Yeah.
Like for what he'll be known for in his career. So it's just, I don't know. The mantle's kind of up for grabs at this point. It'll be interesting to see if Denver becomes another one of those teams that can get them a couple, or become a dynasty in the sense of making multiple conference finals or finals appearances, or if it's going to be a seesaw of players and teams for the next few years. I'd personally love to see that. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? But who knows? Who knows?
nobody.
And with that being said, we will stop yapping at y'all. We'll catch y'all on the next episode.